Next session is going to be on creating the smart, aware home. And, as we get older, how are all of the smart appliances that we've seen in the South Pavilion, how are all the wireless connections, the new flat panels, 3D TVs going to work, along with our caregiving technologies as we grow older. So some of these things we're going to explore here on this panel. So at this point, I'd like to introduce you to George Patton. George is the publisher and founder of Senior Housing News. Senior Housing News serves as a daily news blog on senior housing and senior living industry. And so he reports on the trends and the industry topics in this whole area. So I think this is very exciting, and he's put together a very powerful panel of thought leaders and great information to share with you. So at this point, I'll bring George up to the stage. Holy mackerel.
Good afternoon. Thanks for coming out for our presentation this afternoon, Creating the Smart Aware Home. This afternoon we're going to take a look at various technologies, some simple and some complex, with regard to home automation and senior living. And we're going to start at a very, very high level and then bring it down into some very practical and product-driven solutions towards the end. Senior housing and senior living are really the key foundational pieces to aging in place. As we've continued to go along during the last few years, the concept of senior housing and dwelling has changed dramatically from independent living, assisted living, aging in place, to NORCs, to granny pods, you name it. Things continue to evolve and change, and new concepts keep coming out. The challenge for technology has been, how is that technology integrated into these facilities, both new and existing? Looking at it from new construction, renovation, and then also how do we get systems in place in structures that weren't originally designed for technology solutions. We can talk a lot about architecture, universal design, and accessible design. But really what we're going to focus on here is some practical things such as passive monitoring, some heat sensors, and various simple technologies. When I assembled the panel here, we talked about what home automation and senior housing goals were required. And two of the foundational goals are safety and security, and also monitoring, communication, and some functions of support for assistance of daily living activities. And that really coming back to focus on safety and security is what we're going to talk about here today. I think looking forward as to the future of home automation, we'll be extending the home area network outside into the community, working with various providers, doctors, and other entities throughout the community. Economics really are driving everything that goes on today, especially in the home automation space. We continue to look at the affordability of these solutions, and more importantly, who pays. That's a common theme amongst many of the presentations here today. The challenge with technology and implementing it into the home on a consumer technology basis is really the cost-benefit analysis. From a deferral decision of putting someone in skilled care or assisted living, and when is that person eventually going to have to go into some kind of skilled care setting. So that's kind of an unknown factor when trying to calculate that. And really one of the areas that I and Senior Housing News follow tremendously is low income and middle income solutions for senior housing and aging in place. I think a lot of the home automation and technologies here today are geared towards a higher end type consumer. And as technology continues to get cheaper, it'll be very interesting to see how things progress down to that lower end of the economic spectrum. I'm going to introduce Stuart Sikes. Stuart is the president of Parks Associates and provides strategic marketing services to various technology companies. And I'll turn it over to Stuart.
Good. Thank you all for inviting Parks Associates to present today. Our firm focuses on consumer technology. So for about 25 years, we've been quantifying the adoption of technology amongst the connected consumer in the digital home. So obviously digital health is a space that we've been watching now for about the past 5 years. So my role today is going to be to provide some sort of macro trends that we're seeing. And of course, no surprise, we're finding that adoption of home technologies has been much slower than we'd hoped or expected. So next slide is, you can go ahead and do the builds, but I won't go through all these points. We've seen all day a number of compelling facts about the current crisis situation that we're in. The point I want to add to that is, we have to ask ourselves, are we going to let the building wave of demand, is it going to overtake the dam and essentially destroy the current structure of healthcare in our society before we go and implement solutions? Obviously, our industry would like to attack particular opportunities, solution opportunities, and roll those out in a rapid and organized fashion. That is not happening very quickly, so will we have to have really a collapse of the current infrastructure in order to rebuild it in the proper way? A couple of questions that I think we have to ask ourselves are, one, with all the disruptive technologies that we've seen, I'm looking around the room and see a lot of iPads in the room, and of course the smartphone and app environment. Why are we not seeing such huge disruption in the area of health technologies? Will there be a period of chaos before there's order? So looking forward at a number of models for care, this is similar to many slides that we've seen today. A couple of points about those. Fitness and wellness we have to look at each of these opportunities as really separate opportunities with separate drivers and market segments. The first one being fitness and wellness, we certainly see as a consumer-driven opportunity. So the question here is, how can we as vendors provide a value proposition that causes the consumer to take action in the fitness and wellness space? Chronic care certainly is an important area, but we see here that many sensors are required, the complexity is higher than wellness and fitness, and it requires coaches to interpret the data. Senior care being the next area where it's a combination of consumer-driven opportunities as well as care provider opportunities. And then finally, e-health. I think the exciting thing we need to watch about e-health is there are tremendous opportunities for mobile applications of smartphones and the like. Moving forward, if we look at the disconnection between these opportunities and the technologies that are available today, we see sort of two separate spaces that have not yet come together. We look at a number of technologies that are off the shelf. We've seen a lot of examples here at the show of technologies that are viable and can be implemented today, but they have not permeated the care model that we have in our cultures. One reason for this might be the fact that often we're moving sort of from left to right in the slide. We're taking technologies that exist today and we're trying to leverage them into a health model. Perhaps we're thinking incorrectly and we need to start on the right with the care providers and figure out how technologies are going to benefit them from both a labor perspective as well as a revenue perspective, and push the technologies from right to left on the chart. One point to address is we've heard the articles probably discussed today, the issues of no significant evidence that health monitoring or heart monitoring technologies are making a difference to the care model. Technology for the sake of technology and data for the sake of data is not advancing our cause. If we understand what sort of action is required by health providers and then figure out how to automate that, then I think our models will be sounder. George, next slide, please.